Upon that realisation, I think it was necessary for us as Republicans to think that if we can continue our armed struggle for another 25, 30 years, but understanding that there would be no outright military victory, then we had a responsibility to try to bring the armed conflict to an end and to develop, if you like, political and peaceful and democratic way towards our goal for Irish independence and the reunification of Ireland as a whole. So really it was a pragmatic understanding between Republicans and the British government that we had to find another way to resolve the conflict in Ireland from the old way of repression and armed resistance. And that's the if you like, the core of our peace process. Of course, we had to realise that we had a very strong and justifiable argument for reunification. We wanted to end the partition of Ireland. So we embarked upon, if you like, a new strategy where we tried to bring the armed struggle to an end, but only on the basis that we would have a peaceful, political, democratic way forward. That required a number of years of negotiations. It required a number of years of internal consideration and consultation among our own membership and indeed our wider community. But we had to create the conditions to bring an armed struggle to an end. Obviously the IRA or Irish Republicans were not going to simply abandon their struggle under no circumstance. We were very faithful and committed. We understood that our armed struggle could continue for many decades to come, but in the knowledge that we would not have if you like, an early outright military victory over the British, then it was important that we found a more peaceful, democratic way. A way in which meant that no further lives needed to be lost, no people else needed to go back into prison again to serve lengthy periods of time. So it was trying to find a bridge between armed conflict and repression into a democratic way forward, and that required a lot of negotiations. Well, our prisoners, our political prisoners, were a very important part of this whole consideration. In Irish history, political prisoners have always formed a very important part of each generation of struggle, because our political prisoners are popular in their own communities. They are people who are highly respected and regarded by people within the communities. Obviously, you would have heard of, in our generation, prisoners like Bobby Sands, who died on hunger strike. There have been many almost legendary escapes from British prisons by Irish Republican prisoners. That has gone back 200 years. And in every generation, we have people who are political prisoners who have played a very, very important role in the armed struggle and in the political struggle. So even in this generation, our political prisoners played a very important role. They had their own internal debates within the prisons. They discussed that with their families, they discussed it with their comrades, and they gave their support to the leadership on the outside to, if you like, try to find a more peaceful, democratic way forward. And the prisoners were very supportive of that. As far as we were concerned, the Good Friday Agreement had to address all of the causes of our conflict. So we were not simply looking for an end to conflict, because, as we have said, ending a conflict is never the end of a struggle. It is really only the beginning. So we wanted the Good Friday Agreement, or what became known as the Good Friday Agreement, to address all of the issues. Social justice, the division of the island of Ireland, partition of course, the rights to self-determination for the Irish people, but also issues of social and economic equality, identity rights for the Northern Nationalist and Republican community, but also the release of political prisoners. We always were very clear that political prisoners were merely a symptom of the conflict. They were in prison because of the conflict, because of repression, and they, as part of any peace settlement, would have to be released. So the agreement which we reached in 1998 guaranteed the release of all of our political prisoners in the maximum period of 2 years. So all of our prisoners were released within 2 years, and many were released before that. Well, we are at a very critical juncture at the moment in our political process, because A very important part of the peace agreement in '98 was to have institutions based in the north, which would then help to establish north-south institutions. But in the north, we have an assembly, and I'm elected to that assembly, and I have been since 1998. But the core importance of those institutions in the north were that the parties were included by virtue of their mandate. So we had ministerial office because the people gave us a vote. We had a mandatory coalition of all the parties who received a sufficient vote from the people. Our party, of course, Sinn Fein, has been in that government since 1998. We have led that government with the lead unionist party for the past 10 years. But increasingly, the lead unionist party has begun to, if you like, rather than embrace the concept of partnership, rather than embrace the institutions of working with your political opponents with respect, mutual equality for all of the citizens, the lead unionist party have been trying to act within the institutions as a single party, dividing power rather than sharing power. They have been very disrespectful of the nationalist community, of women's rights, of ethnic minority rights, of the LGBT community's rights, and they have refused to accept the Bill of Rights, which is part of the Good Friday Agreement, and essentially equality for all. And we have determined that even though we have worked very, very hard and long to retain these institutions, we are not prepared to accept the institutions if they do not function on the basis of mutual respect and equality for all of our citizens. If a lead partner in the government is not prepared to treat everyone else with equality and respect, then we will not allow them to be in those institutions. So we are at a very critical period now because our leadership have withdrawn the legitimacy of the institutions. We have resigned from them, and we will face new elections in 6 weeks' time.